We have the Burgerkrieg's You Will Be Angry, Werewolf the Apocalypse lore. I know just enough to know that this is Burgerkrieg. He's going to talk about the fact that everything White Wolf does in Mage the Ascension, Werewolf the Apocalypse, basically every franchise they do has a deeper meaning that they're into. And I really want to see wherever it goes because this is freaking cool, man. This one is activism and fighting against a fate that has already befallen you, such as the literal apocalypse. Yeah, although that's kind of in retcon, but we'll see how this goes. Also, Nicholas Jennings, you asked in chat, have I tried ZZZ? Yes. Polchara is a very interesting art, including the fact that when MiHoYo put up the trailer for her, it was taken down by YouTube for being too spicy. And if anyone's looking it up, there's a few. Yeah. And Helos, you mentioned I'm keeping hairphones forever. I'm not commenting on any of this, and anyone who doesn't understand what's being said in the chat during this video when it's not live, assume I said nothing incriminating. Nothing at all. At all. Yeah.
The Black Furies are angry at the overwhelming injustice in the world. Sexism, racism, police brutality, economic inequality, every single one of them has a chip on their shoulder about some systemic problem that...
Can you imagine people being upset due to problems other people made you suffer through? That's crazy. It's so unrealistic.
Pisses them off. And they want to do something about it, urgently. In this, they're sort of the brouhaha of the werewolf world. Unfortunately, in the process of doing so, they can be a little gung-ho with the no-holds-barred. They do not generally believe in patience, but they do believe in smashing systemic oppression and its agents at all costs, without much...
When did this come out? 11 months ago? Yeah.
Room for compromise. Small victories do not matter to the Black Furies, and since they believe their cause is just, they will happily throw a wrench into any finely laid plan or operation other Garou have put in place.
Oh, they'll even fuck over other werewolves as well. Well, Garou is probably more accurate, but not all wolves. Details.
That operation will settle for less than what the marginalized deserve. Though they generally support each other and like to engage in highly effective public activism, sometimes their solidarity can be cut a little short.
Wait, they'll actually just do public activism instead of just essentially the not appropriate for YouTube word? Huh.
If they feel like another Black Fury is too dedicated to the wrong cause, to the detriment of their own. Sometimes these causes can be very idiosyncratic and reductive. You'll find, like,
It's a good thing everything he's saying right now about the the completely fantasy option of how activist groups who are absolutely laser focused on a specific aspect of activism without looking at the bigger picture could also cannibalize their own potential allies. Hopefully that's a turn of phrase and not accurate. Rather than, moderate to fix the issue. I don't. It's a good thing this isn't an accurate description of more extremism in general as opposed to just fantasy. That would be really accurate and really on the nose and just wow. I like to point out this is a game from the 80s probably or 90s. Yeah. It was meant for probably Vietnam era is what would probably inspire the people who later made games about that kind of protest.
Environmentalists who advocate human genocide, radical feminists who think that trans people and men are the enemy, and anarchists who think all lawyers should just be murdered. You'll find these people just as readily as you will genuine intersectionalists who operate...
Again, this is fantasy. And if YouTube's watching, still fantasy. I have no idea what else it would be.
From a place of kindness.
1992 was the first edition? That makes sense, Martin.
Myth. You may know Medusa, she was a Gorgon, and it's a spirit of revenge against injustice both real and perceived. She favors fighting abuse and discrimination wherever...
Oh, so is Medusa a name, a title, or the actual Medusa from mythology happen to be a werewolf? Probably snake-based, considering Warform was the Medusa we all know as Snakehead.
And whenever it can be found, clawing at authority even just to have done it and bans not doing that when you would have been in a position to make a difference, even if the act of making a difference would have cost you. In the old law, the Black Furies were structurally very different, as they comprised pretty much exclusively women. They were hardcore radical feminists, and many had a real hate boner for men. Amazon warriors who were actually not as supportive of the feminist movement as you might expect in modern days, while at the same time bearing partial responsibility for some of its more racist and classist elements in the past. Their patron spirit,
because they would have very much viewed themselves as better, and that kind of thing does probably bleed down, yeah.
It used to be Pegasus, not Gorgon, whose purpose was to protect that which is holy and support women by carrying them on his back. Their aesthetic was of course ancient Greek, consequently, especially items of the female priesthood that was very prevalent in many periods of ancient Greece. And I think you could introduce certain factions within the Black Furies that only accept women. If you're open to the idea that there might be secondary totems certain members of a tribe could choose as their patron, some of those old school Black Furies might even still be pledged to Pegasus. Some classic...
So there is still leeway about how you play them. So it doesn't have to be just straight up Furies. Female, Greek, but you can actually have variation, maybe not all as extreme if you want to go the initial one, which was more Greek female Templar, essentially. Yeah, that'd actually be a pretty cool way to play it. Huh. Ooh, Moon God, you jumped in? Nice.
Black Furies characters might be a firebrand union organizer in rural West Virginia, an old IRA frontline warrior missing the glory days of the Troubles, or a teenager in Compton who is taken to killing cops that murder unarmed black kids. The Black Spiral Dancers are a corrupted and broken tribe that actually serves the worm, not Gaia, and is thus one of the tribes not available to player characters as of Werewolf 5.
Wait, they previously were? Oh, that's actually really fascinating. So there's no renown. Their patron was the bat. But if they're not corrupted and you decide to play them anyways, you're literally playing an evil werewolf game, essentially. Oh.
They used to be known as the White Howlers and were flipped when they found an opportunity to plunge right into the dark lair of the Worm, a realm known as Malpheus, but instead found themselves trapped in an endless, physics-defying labyrinth decorated with maddening black spirals. In the labyrinth, they would torn...
And that's why they're called the Black Spiral Dancers, because they're probably just dancing between the spirals that cap them. Yeah.
Torn up and lost, even when they tried to stay together, and had their wills broken by the superior might of the Worm. They realized that the Worm was simply too powerful, too supreme to be fought, and the only rational thing to do would be to serve it as the ultimate natural fate of the universe. So now they walk the world in their twisted and mutated forms, only vaguely resembling Garou. And seeing...
Oh, their forms are mutated too. Sorry, this is one of those things where there's a lot of what the fuck when it comes into general looks in World of Darkness. It can go anywhere from, I can't tell if that's not human, to, okay, that's not human. This apparently takes up to 11. Like, if the technocracy saw this, they'd think you're coming from not Earth. And admittedly, based on how this is described, that probably is an accurate way to put it. So, yeah, that sounds fascinating, man.
Gaia dead, their cousins going through the various stages of grief about it, they feel entirely vindicated. Now it's time to chow down on the spoils and speed up the destruction. Their motivation here is not like super rational, though they may strongly rationalize it. They are kind of broken-minded. The patron spirit...
Actually, playing them, I know they're supposed to be the bad guys and this be not something you could choose, but it actually sounds like playing them would literally be create a character who does horrible things and then rationalizes away everything they just did. And part of the RPG of it, the actual role-playing aspect, would be coming up with the on-the-spot rationalizations to say you're in the right, to do the absolute most fucked up option, I can't speak today, option possible. I could see this being really fun once. And then anytime after that, you have to question someone's like, are you sure you're okay with this? Followed by, oh, you're okay with this? I think I need a protection order.
Spirit is Bat, whom they encountered in the Black Spiral Labyrinth, replacing Lion, who had been the patron of the White Howlers however many eons ago.
Yeah.
Bat offered to guide the tribe out of the labyrinth, but did so only after their will was broken. It's not clear what it favors or bans in 5th edition, but in old editions it favored recognizing things that would otherwise remain unperceived, and banned physically harming other shapeshifters, which, you know, given that the black...
Oh. Oh! That part right there sounds fascinating. I know he said none right now, and it's only in previous editions, but banning harming other shapeshifters actually sounds fascinating, because that takes what could have been the we're gonna fuck everything up to the we're going to revel in the fact that we were right, but we're not going to rub it in your face physically by killing you because we are not allowed to hurt you, which would then imply that there's darkness and light as opposed to just one-sided, this is just bad, which would give a possible good ending. So it's not just the, okay, you're playing this and now I'm afraid of you as a human being. Sorry, I like it when there's depth to something, and this shows that there was depth. Oh yeah, the was part though. Was part of it, now not anymore.
Spiral dancers will attack other Garou in 5th edition is clearly not the case here anymore. This was originally so because Bat was a servant of the pure, balanced worm, which is supposedly still imprisoned somewhere within Malphias.
See, that would be what I would like if there actually was the real worm who was in balance, creation and destruction. But that would be so freaking cool if they had that still, but no, they're moving away from that. Which is weird because in a lot of other ways they're not doing that.
But has in itself been split and corrupted. And the old lore, the Black Spiral Dancers had pretty much the same story, though with the additional information that the White Howlers were originally a Pictish tribe in northern Britain, so like what today is Scotland.
Actually, if anyone looks up, the Picts are pretty awesome. Not much known about them, but there are some of their ruins, which I think one of them had a version of internal plumbing. It's rough, but it exists. Pretty cool layers when you find the ruins.
During the Roman invasion of the British Isles. So perhaps in addition to the spirals, you might find plenty of Pictish symbology among them, a lot of which also includes spirals. The main difference is that though they encountered Bat in the Black Spiral Labyrinth, their new patron spirit ultimately became the Whippoorwill.
The what?
A really weird-looking bird that was actually a sort of demon known as a Bane, which we will get into later.
Ooh.
Banes are very interesting. And he allowed them to imitate bird calls, but also banned them from harming birds, which honestly not very strong in terms of...
That doesn't even sound strong. That sounds incredibly lame. Especially if there's a peacock Garou. You know, I was going to make a joke about that, but someone's probably going to tell me, yeah, no, that was a thing. Ooh, also, Kumar, you mentioned, check out Casper's Foxtails from Style. He has Peter Barber as Zeus and Tegan Early as Persephone. I don't know why, but for some reason I've heard of that, but I don't know why. Oh, Styx Tales. That one I've heard of. Yeah, I think it was actually recommended by Saddlebag. If we hit the goal for today, I might check that one out, and I wouldn't complain because that looked really interesting.
Of theme, I have to say. Some classic Black Spiral Dancer characters might be an advertising consultant working in a greenwashing agency, a hitman who goes after journalists and environmental activists, or an apex predator hunting specifically animals close to extinction. The Bone Gnawers find that the muck and the filth, the pile of leftovers, makes for a pretty decent way to live, actually, if you...
Just going to throw out there everything he just said, living in the muck and the filth and just making through there. Those jobs in human society actually pay really well because no one wants to do them, so they're forced to make it really well compensated. I don't mean like janitorial work. I mean working in a sewage plant. It might not be great money, but it's better than a lot. And the downside is you work in a sewage plant. So yeah. Or if you want to do mucking, like the entire concept of the old show Dirty Jobs was basically a lot of the people they're showing, some of them were millionaires because no one else wanted to do their shit. That's mostly me just using the word because I can, but also sometimes a literal description of what was on there. For example, people who would muck out clams. It's a dirty, annoying, backbreaking job, but you could be a millionaire doing it. It's just no one wants to do it because it's tedious. Yeah. So this is actually just accurate regardless. Also, patron rat renown honor. Wasn't expecting that. And Thomas, you mentioned, will you end it today or will you make it a part 4 and there is no peacock? There is no peacock according to you, Thomas. I'm sure someone else will correct me about that if I agree with you. Also, joking aside, if there isn't, I'm assuming there eventually will be because that would be funny. I'm just going to throw it out there. And will I make it a part 4? Probably. But also just because I love checking it out. There's another hour to go. I forgot this was a 2-hour video. Wow.
Play your cards right. They're at home on the fringes of society, living unseen among the unseen, happy to scrounge and scavenge and in the process find goods and knowledge that no one else would even have tried to get their hands on. In that sense, they're sort of like the Nosferatu of the werewolf world. You'll find them among the homeless, embedded in criminal organizations, with the artists and the non-corporate queers, the pimple-faced colder societies, and disenfranchised workers who sometimes, let's be fair, have less than savory views on minorities because they're constantly bombarded with that sort of propaganda. They keep their eyes and ears open, and when somebody needs something got, be it information, hardware, or a person, the Bone Gnawers can get it done.
Oh, so these guys are the information brokers. They're the fixers. They're the people who know a guy who knows a guy who can get a thing for a guy. It's like, how did you get this? It's literally uranium that has already been halfway made into a nuclear bomb. I know a guy. Okay. That's pretty awesome, man. Also, that might sound like it's a joke about espionage. No. Just a lot was missing in Russia, so you have a lot of justification to bring a nuke into a game.
As you might imagine, they're not exactly considered high society in Garou circles, though probably one or two of them are butlers and maids, and so know a lot more about high society, and it's...
This is usually where I would say, but they might not be high society, but definitely someone in Garou leadership knows how useful they are. But considering how much Garou society seems to be forced into very direct, very black and white looks at non-black and white issues, I wouldn't be surprised if there's actually large segments of Garou society who don't actually realize how awesome these guys sound as the ultimate, we're going to make sure you win, fight advantage multiplier. That's so cool.
Secret etiquette than most of the high and mighty can leaders do. Their intelligence, ingenuity, and, let's be fair, loose morals when it comes to getting results are indispensable, though. I mean, shit, they're one of the few tribes that places a high value on having a good education, though to them that doesn't necessarily mean being a scientist or academic. Their patron spirit is Rat, a survivalist.
Really, Burgerkrieg? It's like he gets right to the point of, okay, what does he actually value? And moves on. Normally, that's not the problem with him. So when he does it, it's actually just like, ah. Yeah. Also, Steven, I'm in this channel for a couple weeks, so if I must miss it, but if I'm doing gaming live streams, I usually would like to, except I didn't last week because I ran short on time, and I can't this week because I can't do anything Saturday, and I can't next week because I'm going to be at a convention live, and that'll be awesome. So yeah, just not for like a few weeks in a row.
Spirit of the hidden and the unwanted, who favors digging for valuable information and to actually make use of it instead of sitting on it, unless sitting on it is accomplishing a purpose in and of itself. It also cares about the dregs of society, so it bans not using the opportunity to help oppressed outsiders in a meaningful, non-symbolic way when it...
Oh, yeah, that's... How are these not the poster boys of the good guys? A lot of World of Darkness has people who are good, but they're also really kind of not in the game anymore. Looking at the vampires who were immediately replaced by the Tremere. This seems like the guys who are not the fanciest, but the ones you actually want on your side.
It presents itself. In the old lore, they were actually pretty similar. A group originally formed of the outcasts from other tribes. Bone Gnawer used to be a bit of an insult for bottom feeders and these sorts of outcasts, but they eventually started wearing it with pride, as often happens. After all, the bones are full of tasty and nourishing marrow. It's the same with detritus falling from high society. Like, you wouldn't believe the shit that some people just throw away.
Just throwing it out there, if you happen to be behind a tech store before the dumpster's emptied, you could find a lot of stuff in there sometimes that are perfectly viable. Or bookstores, they rip off the cover so you can't sell them, but the book is still there. You can just get free books. There's a lot of things in trash, especially from stores that aren't food related, that is really damn useful. Some places donate it, others don't, and it's just really useful. I'm not saying I've done this, if only because the places I live near all had locked down trash disposal that had food on it because they put it in the same communal trash. I know that because I worked there. I saw all of the, oh God, I hope that's beans, that were, let's go with growing through things. It might have tried to wave, I'm not entirely sure, and I don't want to find out. Also, Helios, you mentioned, have I thought about reacting to the Hollow Knight lore? Mossbag's channel does it well. I've actually always been curious about Hollow Knight, but I never actually figured out what it is, so maybe someday. Might be fun.
They had a strong trash punk aesthetic, finding meaning in urban decay and the things creative minds with little in the way of resources did with it, persevering in the face of the worm. Magical rituals they perform should...
Wait, explicitly persevering in face of the... Oh, so they're literally the... If the previous faction was reveling in the insanity and the fact that they're right, these are the guys who are still going to probably survive any bullshit that happens.
Probably involve like graffiti, pizza, and colorful plastic bags in some form. There's beauty and genuine camaraderie down where no one else will look, if you are willing to find it. Some classic Bone Gnawer characters might be a foreign spy in Berlin who now has a bit of a conflict of interest with their former employer because they're a werewolf, a technician plumbing the depths of the London Underground, or a smuggler running the Mexico-Californian border. The children of Gaia are of an unorthodox dedicated to Gaia and seeing the key to her protection and understanding her secrets and healing her wounds.
Yeah, that would be why they're, not around anymore. Healing the wounds, as opposed to she's dead. Yeah. Sharo Jack, you mentioned he thinks one can survive a worm victory? Yeah, that's the case.
They do not agree that the apocalypse has happened and that Mother Earth is dead, and they think that in order to save her, the Garou need to lift their nose.
Oh, no, so these were not guys from before she died. They think it's actually still possible to save her. And they probably just fell away as the lore moved on. Okay, that makes sense.
Off the path of rage and look at the bigger picture. Act with thought. Understand why things are happening, so when they do something about them, they can actually be effective. The Umbra is full of mysteries that need to be understood.
Can you imagine being
somehow,
smart?
and so is the material world. And then it's also all interconnected as well, cause and effect, propagating in unlikely ways, wings of a butterfly, hurricane and all that. Sometimes strengthening or mending a connection can actually be much more useful than severing one. They think most Garou are narrow-minded, though nonetheless extremely...
I mean, they're not wrong. If the rat was the guys who are probably going to succeed, I could see a lot of the faction he's talking about right now being rolled into the rat. I know that's not the name, but I'm definitely going to say it.
Useful if appropriately cared for. To just keep going, rage-fueled in the face of destruction just to prove how dedicated you are is selfish to them. Gaia needs you healthy next month to achieve a meaningful victory, not dead tomorrow because you chose to take out another replaceable corporate goon.
But the counterpoint to that is, if you want to play the alternative, they could be the bad guys who are trying to say moderation, but then they just point to Gaia's dead, your moderation failed, which is how most more moderate sides are eventually pushed out. Lack of results equals you're wrong. Is that the case? It honestly, world is complex, games are complex if you're done right. But that's definitely the logic you could use to oppose them without making them, well, they're obviously right. Just, say that, but you failed, so you're wrong. It's the only answer you need to say that you don't need to listen further.
A lot of the more politically severe tribes don't love this philosophy of inaction and think that the children of Gaia clothe themselves in the aesthetic of dedication to Mother Earth to obfuscate their cowardice. They're also one of the tribe's most tolerant of humans, seeing them as an obvious part of the whole and valuable in the protection of Gaia and the fight against the worm defiler, which can...
Would they be aware of mages? Because we've already established in, well, the first half of the video, werewolves don't know everything about all the other factions. And in fact, the lack of knowledge is explicitly there, such as thinking of vampires' power is equal to how fucked up they look, as opposed to generations, which they would have no understanding of.
Can be an unpopular opinion depending where you are. All things being equal though, their advice is usually at least seriously considered. If for no other reason than every leader with half a brain knows that the children of Gaia know things that most wouldn't even care to look for. Their patron spirit is Unicorn, a fleeting, illusory spirit of hidden things and the desire to see and understand them. It represents the holistic beauty of the natural world, and how it's disappearing, and favors the exploration of the interrelatedness of all things. Slippery though it is, it's not fond of deception, because that clouds understanding, and so bans lying, especially if it's done for personal gain. In the old lore, they're not that different, acting as...
Ooh. Sorry, just having a character you're not allowed to lie. It's like, oh, that's so freaking... There's a lot of leeway with that it was so abusable, because I'm not lying, I'm telling you the truth that I know you're going to take the wrong way. Maybe this is just me, but when I play a character and I'm told explicitly I cannot do something, my entire goal in the entire characterization process is, how do I abuse that to make it so I can do the thing I'm not allowed to do? I honestly play role-playing games to enjoy other people's roleplay and to break characters on my end. That's it. That's the point of it. I want to get into Baldur's Gate 3, 1, because I hear it's awesome, and 2, because I want to see how many dumb things can I do to accomplish anything at all. Is there a weird interaction here where I can spontaneously generate all the bullshit without any actual way to do it normally? Yes? Neat. Peasant railgun. I don't think that would be in the game, but it's that level of bullshit that, well, technically the rules say you can, that I want to take advantage of because it's so stupid. I love it.
Is diplomats between tribes, a faction that is beyond question in its dedication to Gaia, and really what is diplomacy if not healing, so that's still their role in most disputes. Their aesthetic was very nature hippie focused because they had a special relationship with Gaia as the tribe descended from her most innocent and idealistic firstborn that were sort of slaughtered. Even the unicorn totem was pretty similar, with a bigger focus on non-violence, but the elements of umbral delving and seeking to understand before striking were already there, very prominent.
Oh, umbral delving. Oh. So you could always say, if you want to justify bringing them in, they weren't gone, just a lot of them delved, and then they missed when all the rest were murdered. And they just lost track of time forever. As soon as you throw people into the Umbra, I've come to the conclusion that that's a great way to say it's a box of I need you now that you can always draw from. That sounds awesome.
Some classic Children of Gaia characters may be a primary care physician in Zimbabwe trying to appease groups of agitated spirits there, a geologist studying volcanoes on Hawaii, or a mushroom grower in rural Brabant trying to create stuff that will fill the people who consume it with more empathy. The Get of Fenris are consumed with rage.
Just gonna say, that is a very probably dangerous symbol to use, the double slash marks. Not going to say why, but if this video gets taken down, we know why.
Seething hatred for the world, and have hurled themselves at it with reckless abandon. In other words, they're all, as a collective tribe, caught in a perpetual state of Hauglosk that will make them tear to shreds even their fellow Garou. Much like the White Howlers a long time ago, in the final days of Apocalypse, they saw an opportunity to strike at the heart of the worm, and they took it. Given that this is what sort of turned the White Howlers into the Black Spiral Dancers eventually, I'm saying chances are it won't end the way that they imagined it, but they are still fighting. This event is actually what collapsed the Garou Nation originally, and I guess technically they're no longer called the Get of Fenris, but the Cult of Fenris, which was a particular sort of super extreme movement within the Get of Fenris, but many use the terms interchangeably, and Get just sounds cooler than cult. Whatever you choose to call it, it's not a playable tribe in Werewolf 5, though there is a lore sheet for characters that used to be Get of Fenris, but left.
Oh, so you can't be part of them because they're all mindless intentionally, but you could previously be part of it, which is also in its own right nice. Also, Ninja. Ooh. What's up, Ninjas? Hi, nice to see you. Well, I forgot to mention that I love the 21.9 aspect ratio. P.S. Reminder, Ninjas, Naruto Ninjas. Stay healthy. I always butcher your name, don't I? I always butcher his name. Because he's doing the reminder of Naruto, or it's Naruto plus Ninjas. Yeah, and the guy used the Naruto's PFP profile pic. Good choice, though. I butcher everyone's name. The problem with spelling it out like that, I'm still not going to say it correctly.
left the tribe when it became too politically extreme. Though they are called in collective Hauglosk, they're not all foaming at the mouth beasts and can actually be quite cunning.
How?
They still manipulate Garou politics, always coaxing them into pushing hard in an all-out.
Wait, if they're lost in Hauglosk, which is just all on rage all the time, how do they still have cunning? I'm guessing it's because some of them aren't as lost. It's like lost in the forest versus lost in space. Still lost, but you're at least on the right planet.
No holds barred war against the worm. This can make them easy to manipulate in turn if you want to throw them off your pack's scent by convincing them maybe that there is a bigger and more immediate fight against the worm to be had, though that may come back to bite you when it turns out it was bullshit and you are now a worm-tainted deceiver in their eyes. Their patron spirit is wolf, which, that's kind of ironic.
The wolves have the thing of wolves while they're also werewolves.
Tribe is no longer inside the Overton window of werewolf politics. It's not known what it favors and what it bans, though if Old Law and...
Wait. This is one of the factions you can't explicitly play in the new edition. So in Werewolf, you can't play the werewolves for wolves. It seems like someone made a mistake somewhere.
Cultures,
it makes sense in universe, out of universe. I'm just sitting here going, nah.
Acts of daring heroism and
1 second.
Bans.
Allergies.
Foregoing the opportunity to prove yourself. In the Old Law, the get was very extreme, often very anti-human, but mainly focused on war, combat, proving yourself.
I'll be honest, this doesn't so much seem like a werewolf faction, like they be players trying to force it, but minor side antagonists. But if you're playing any other faction, like if you're playing mage, if you're playing vampire, I'm not really sure about the other faction enough to talk about them, but it almost seems like these guys would be the drop-in antagonists in a faction game that's not usually about them. Because like, you look human, die. It's like, oh shit, sudden boss battle. Is that the case? Yeah, actually, that sounds awesome. I mean, can you just imagine a story, like Under the Parenting, where there just would suddenly be a werewolf out of nowhere and no one's expecting it, and the sudden aspect of, oh, you're gonna die, is very much a possibility? Yeah, that would be pretty awesome.
Winning battles, like the whole violent alpha male bullshit, that was what the Get of Fenris was all about. They weren't really retconned so much as just brought to their logical conclusion. Their totem is marginally different, as in, in the Old Law it was Fenris, which is obviously a big fuck-off wolf. They had this Norse aesthetic going on, which of course does not work internationally very well, but the trappings of which they probably still use very liberally, especially now that this specific Scandinavian-based faction has completely taken over the tribe. With the fractal nature of spirits, Fenris can easily be interpreted as being an aspect.
Wait, what? See, this is probably one of those things where if I had watched more of his videos about spirits or whatever they were mentioned before, I would know about. I don't know anything about the fractal nature of spirits. So that's actually very interesting. You could have your own personalized version of the spirit.
Or particular incarnation of wolf. Some classic Get of Fenris characters might be a rampaging serial killer in rural Indiana, an impact
11 months ago. Delphi. Just throwing it out there. Seems pretty on the nose. Or the bridge.
Agitator who just shows up to public moods in cans all over Greece to get people riled up. Or a threshold guardian of the Umbra and the Black Forest, killing everyone who tries to enter the local spirit world because they are worm-tainted. The Gale Stalkers are hunters in the purest form, single-minded in their pursuit.
This might just be me, but is every single one of these removed all renowned for honor? And then they're all honorless, except for the rat, who had no renown, but was kind of awesome. No, they had renown for honor as well. It seems like all the things they removed were honor renown.
Of prey. They're not about the politics and they're not about the carnage. They're about the game of chase. Exemplars of what Garou could and should be if the world was not rolling downhill very fast. They do, of course, still fight for Gaia. They are, after all, warriors. And they're very useful because you can point them at someone or something that needs taking down.
And they'll probably kill it.
They will do it. Might take a while, but no prey is too large for them. Many of them are nomads who travel in pursuit of their prey, but just as many live in a particular place that they know inside out, and where none can hide from them. All you need to do is drive an enemy of the Garou into their particular valley, bay, or neighborhood, and they will find them. This goes beyond the material world and human targets.
What?
They're just as happy to hunt spirits and monsters, be they Bane mutated Fomori or vampires.
So as much as the last faction sounded like the drop-in bad guy that you can't play, this sounds like the drop-in mercenary that you can't play. Such as you're engaging with Werewolf in a non-Werewolf franchise, but these are the ones where you can get them as an ally because they just happen to have a really fun target they want to hunt. And if they're hunting things that are not just in the human side, that means if you ever go anywhere weird, you could have them engage other places. Hell, I wouldn't even be surprised if you were playing a mage game, fighting the Technocracy, and the Technocracy hired this werewolf faction because the werewolves would think, oh, they're just humans. And the mages would be like, yeah, we're just going to throw them at our problem right now because deniability. And also they might kill off something that's not controlled either. So mutual benefit. That probably wouldn't happen with the Technocracy because it wouldn't be controlled. But if you're playing the more, we just want things to die, and maybe less extreme versions, which apparently there are some of, maybe it would. I don't know. But it's that weird line of it's just crazy enough. I could see someone do it where I could see a DM suddenly pull off, hey, the Technocracy got some werewolves to hunt you. Have fun. And this actually sounds fun as well. Or if you happen to hire them yourself.
Even human hunters often find themselves hunted by Gale Stalkers instead. While they're held up as like a great ideal in Garou society, their myopic preoccupation with the craft often makes them miss the bigger picture, and their general lack of interest in the politicking of what remains of the Garou nation often makes them go along with whoever's promising the biggest mammoth to hunt, regardless of whether or not it actually can be realistically hunted. This sort of simple-minded political apathy makes them a primal conservative force, if you will. Their patron spirit is the North Wind, a powerful and unceasing force of nature that's always blowing and never ceases, giving the
I think it cut out over the summer.
Gale Stalkers seemingly endless endurance.
Sorry, over the winter I think it cut out briefly. That's why there was various bomb cyclones
in the pursuit of their prey. At the same time, it bans not indulging in one's hunger and demands that the Gale Stalkers eat a fresh kill every day.
Oh,
as you can probably imagine, this can make them somewhat conspicuous in many areas where even animals are tracked by rangers, and where leaving a trail of bodies can call the attention of all the wrong authorities. Hunters know what to look out for when it comes to werewolves. In the old lore, the Gale Stalkers didn't exist. That's right, they knew they were made up fresh for 5th edition.
Oh, that's new. Wait, they're a new faction made for 5th edition that you can't play? I thought this was explicitly the factions you can't play. Huh. Or maybe it's just all of them all together.
They were absolutely Garou that sort of fulfilled this hunter archetype, and they do have elements of various tribes that no longer exist, especially the Wendigo, but even there the connections are rather tenuous. However, if you recall the very beginning of this video, you might think, hey, hang on, wait a minute, dedicated to the hunt? That sounds like the Chronicles of Darkness-flavored werewolves. And I really honestly personally think that that is at least in part where they were going with this. If you want some level of continuity, you could of course say that they had always existed, but weren't explicitly part of the Garou nation, or they're like a newly formed tribe in these post-apocalypse times of Garou that are like somewhat...
So what he's saying is less, they're not a new creation, they just were never really part of it because they fucked off. Honestly, yeah, it's not even the worst explanation for what technically is a retcon in this case. I'm not even sure it counts as a retcon because it's just flat out new. There's nothing it is retconning. It's just new. Yeah.
kind of societal breakaways from all the politics that have realized you do actually kind of need to participate in the politics if you don't want the world to end. Some classic Gale Stalker characters might be a bounty hunter in the Southwest, going specifically after the most heinous and dangerous criminals, a park ranger who puts in for a lot of transfers and who sometimes just shows up when there's trouble in spite of having questionable credentials, or a Somali pirate on the Horn of Africa whose crew focuses on attacking oil transports. The Ghost Council are shamans and mystics of the dark and unspeakable secrets of the world, scholars of...
Their patron is the horned serpent, the renown is wisdom. I thought that was like the we're not doing it shamans. Never mind. This is like the one faction in all of the werewolf factions entirely that probably do the smart. As opposed to the try and think it out but look cowardly. These are the people who actually know what they're doing probably. And are probably not ever going to be in a position to be used in a game because they're just removed enough that it wouldn't really come up for most gameplay. Yeah, that would suck.
Of the unreal and esoteric, seekers of forbidden knowledge. They don't seek to understand to heal or to know what is secret, but to delve specifically into mysteries that were not meant to be delved into, making them sort of like a dark academia version of the
So I had the wrong one. These aren't the smart people. These are the obsessive idiots who sound like the MacGuffin holders in any campaign. So these are probably the guys you're not going to play as one. You're going to play to get to one or to work for one if you're getting a quest in a more traditional sense. Like, hey, they have a MacGuffin in their house. Get it. That actually sounds kind of awesome.
Children of Gaia. They question the wisdom of limiting yourself in arbitrary ways and seek to use all tools on the table in order to fight the worm, recognizing that the rules were not made for them in this fight and thus choosing not to play by them. They're interested in all sorts of exotic magics and strange spirits that few would dare seek out in the first place. And we'll get in touch with mages and vampires and fairies and all other sorts of incredibly dangerous beings, generally unwilling to part with what they know.
They explicitly reach out to all of those factions. I see why, like, as much as I thought the last faction, the previous one about the hunters was the one that it could be easily used specifically by the technocracy. Say, hey, go kill this guy. Because either you succeed and a guy we don't like is dead, or you die and a guy we don't like is dead, and there's no downside. This could be the case of they would actually reach out to them, to the one random person technocracy who would be amenable to a trade of information for mutual benefit. I don't know. As soon as I start talking in their point of view, I start intentionally sounding as British as possible. Or asshole. Same difference. Huh. Weird. I can see them being a random quest giver in a different campaign setting even easier because a werewolf might know what they are. Is like, yeah, I don't want to fuck with them. But someone who's not a werewolf would probably not know that this is not the person they should not fuck with. That's kind of awesome.
Rumor has it that the tribe as a political entity may even include some non-werewolves, be that other shapeshifters, or even the occasional gangrel on board with the Garou cause, though they would never bring them to any meetings, of course, so it's probably just a rumor.
Wait, what? There's just random gangrel vampires who are chilling with the Garou. Honestly, yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Of interest in forbidden,
and especially if they're with the more, we don't want the humanity, we want to be the beast. Hanging with actual beasts probably would do it.
Knowledge is exactly why the Ghost Council is distrusted. To the Garou political establishment, tradition is everything. And to veer from it is to invite the corruption of the worm. That's why we have tradition in the first place. It's the tried and the true. And honestly, with the extreme lifestyles many Ghost Council Garou lead in their secluded mountain monasteries, their huts deep in the jungle...
Called it on that one. But what does he mean by extreme in the sense that they're actually willing to talk and go into the deep, dark places of why are you looking at this? Yeah.
Umbra and reality blend seamlessly, their hazy opium dens, it's hard not to take that worry at least a little bit seriously. Their patron spirit is Horned Serpent, a pragmatic spirit that lurks hidden, unburdened by shame, and privy to the darkest of knowledge. It favors gathering knowledge and using it without regard for how it ought to be used, simply what will have the most effect. At the same time, it bans you from not gathering knowledge, even at the most inopportune and inappropriate times.
See, that, what he just said, is probably the coolest downside I can imagine. Because if you're playing this character, I know these are not the guys you're supposed to play, but let's be honest, that's never going to stop anyone. It's a role-playing game. Do what the fuck you want, as long as the DM's okay with it. If your downside is, at the most inopportune time, you still have to search for that knowledge, I can easily imagine going into a fight, having an enemy there, ooh, book, walking away. You literally are playing a knowledge squirrel brain. I love this, because you could be, if you decide to play as one, as opposed to exploit that as the way you get away from the guy who you definitely should not be able to beat, it's by taking advantage of squirrel brain. Even better if they're a squirrel shapeshifter. Oh god, that'd be awesome. If you decide to do that, yeah, you would just have that weakness of, oh, you found the big bad's book closet with all the secrets they haven't told anyone? Goodbye. We're still in the fight. You're about to die. Not my problem. Books. I'm not saying I need to do this, but I kind of need to do this.
If you have idle curiosity about something, it reckons, there's probably
this would be my try, Martin.
In the old lore, the Ghost Council were actually called Uktena, one of those like Native American ethnic tribes that had to be repurposed somewhat more internationally, though they were known as the Ghost Council as well as Uktena. They had that whole forbidden knowledge thing going on for them, but again very much tied to like ethnicity. Their patron spirit was even a horned serpent, and Uktena is in fact the Cherokee word for that particular being, which is pretty frequent in American Indian and First Nations cultures. That's obviously also their original aesthetic, just sort of dark and mysterious. And I really do think for a tribe that does pragmatic mysticism, you could easily manifest the example of the steppe nomad with a dream catcher here, but you don't have to. More than most other tribes, the Ghost Council are now characterized by their diversity of thought. Some classic Ghost Council characters might be an astronomer in Copenhagen who hides the fact that they really can see truth in the stars from their scientist colleagues, a sailor on an iron hauler who dives into the Great Lakes to enter weird pockets of the Umbra, or a cartel sicario in Sinaloa known for doing really weird Aztec blood sacrifices with their marks. The Glasswalkers are builders.
Dude. Okay. We're going to hold off on Glasswalkers until next week, because that is just, I want to leave on the high note of I already know this is awesome, and every single person in all of the live streams where this has come up have been talking about the Glasswalkers, so I'm going to save it for next time because I want to find out what they are without having to compare them to what sounds like, if I play Werewolf, I'm going to beg the DM to let me use this faction, because just that random, I know shit, I'm going to abuse it, and I'm going to go squirrel brain intentionally, is literally how I want to play this game. Yeah, it sounds awesome. So, as much as some of the other ones seemed reductive, intentionally so, to a lot of werewolves, where a lot of werewolf culture is very straightforward, we're doing this because we've always done this and everything else is bad, these are the guys who are going like, what would a magic nuke look like if I tried to swallow it? Is it a good idea? No. Would it be fun to find out once? Yeah. Sorry. When it comes to press the red button and also werewolf at the same time, yeah, that just sounds awesome. Basically what I'm saying is, if you haven't already, there's a link below to the video. Hit it up. Burgerkrieg did an amazing job, and I love this. It's so cool to see how these factions work and how some of them are neat, some of them are really useful, some of them are horrible, but in a way that could be really used for a baddie. And then there's these guys who are just freaking cool. I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.